Welcome back to the Agriland live stream. We're at row 10, stand 223, and live in our Agriland studio we have Mary Lou McDonald, leader of Sinn Féin. Thank you very much for joining us at Ploughing 2025. Mary Lou, it's been a busy year since I last spoke to you on this stage this time last year. In amongst that, there was a possibility that you might be going for the highest office in the state, and we've just come off the back of that, and there was rumours that you might put your name forward for the Áras. I will just stick with the presidential election for the moment before we move on to farming. And tell me, has Sinn Féin decided if they're going to back a candidate, even put forward a candidate at this stage now?
Well, firstly, Stella, thank you for having me, and it's great to be here again with you. So we have had a very long consideration around what we do in this campaign, recognising on the one hand the importance of the role of Uachtaráin na hÉireann. The job is important. It matters who occupies that role, that they represent the country with distinction and dignity, that they're in touch with the realities of ordinary people's lives. And for our purposes, we really want to see somebody in the Áras who has the back of younger people in particular. I think that is just really, really important. So we've talked over the last number of weeks around all of that, but we're conscious also as the lead party of opposition that our primary duty is to keep working, to hold the government to account, to keep them under pressure, to bring different ideas and solutions, and to work to a place where, come the next election, there is an alternative, but not just that, a better alternative, a more effective alternative. So we're balancing out those two things. We have essentially two options: to run our own candidate or to back another, the other being Catherine Connolly. So we've explored all of those. I'm going to bring a proposal to the Sinn Féin leadership on Saturday. We will make our announcement then, and whichever road we travel, we're going to be very active in this campaign. And just to say to people who are taking an interest in things, and I've heard some in the media and some of our political colleagues say, oh, they're very slow, and actually our timing is on the nose, because the campaign will begin on the 24th of September with the close of nominations. And then polling day is October the 24th. That's just under 5 weeks of campaigning. And believe me, people will have plenty of time to scrutinise, to consider, and to make their democratic decision. Let me say this also. I don't believe that parties of government who have failed so badly in so many ways should be rewarded or encouraged or endorsed by returning their candidate to the Áras. I also don't think it's democratically healthy to have the parties of government holding the office of Taoiseach and Taoiseach and everything else, and the Áras. I think one of the great merits of previous Uachtaráin, President Higgins, for example, is the fact that he was independent from the government of the day. I think that's a very, very healthy thing. So we will make that case in the course of the campaign.
Well, for example, you can't exactly say, you know, candidates such as Fianna Fáil's Jim Gavin has been ensconced in Fianna Fáil politics up to this point. A lot of people think, oh, he's coming from, I suppose, ordinary society, and he was a GAA manager and so on, so that it's one step removed from the political sphere.
But here's the thing. The moment that you accept the nomination of a party of government and you join that political party, you can't disentangle yourself from the politics of who they are and what they're at, because rest assured that the return of a Fine Gael or a Fianna Fáil candidate will say to Simon Harris or Micheál Martin, you're doing a great job, lads. It will be taken as a political endorsement. And I don't think that is correct. I think far better to have a person succeed, Michael D. Higgins, as Uachtaráin, a person who is fair and talented and capable and able to do the job, and also independent from the government of the day. But we'll debate that. By the way, I know Jim Gavin, I'm a dub. I mean, you know, 5 in a row, 6 in a row, you know, huge All-Ireland success. So let me commend him for that. But each of the candidates that are backed by political parties, they're political candidates. That's how this works. It's a political contest.
Okay, well, I could go on for about the presidential, but we're not here to debate the presidential election at the moment. We're here to talk about farming. We're at Ploughing 2025. And this time last year when I spoke to you, you very vehemently said that Sinn Féin is for farmers. It's a party that really knows about the grassroots of this country and what, you know, issues are affecting them, and that you would fight tooth and nail to ensure that they, you know, whether it's in budgets or in policy, that, you know, they are really considered. Looking back on the 12 months, we have spoken to a lot of farmers in different parts of the country, and criticism will come of all political parties, the ones in government and the ones in opposition. Can you stand over what you said this time last year, where you would vehemently fight for farmers' rights and say they're in a much better place because of the actions your party has taken?
Well, I think that people can look and judge for themselves as soon as the 7th of October, you know, because as the saying goes, talk is cheap. At a point, people have to kind of put their money where their mouth is. So the question will be who comes up trumps for farming, for agriculture, but also for rural communities more broadly in respect of supports for people facing into a cost of living crisis, facing all of the constraints and challenges that face producers at this time. So, for example, we talked, I think last time, Stella, about our proposal for a commission on the family farm, because I'm very aware that succession is a huge issue. Bringing young people into farming is a huge issue. The government didn't go for our commission on the family farm, which would have been a bulkier and a more substantive initiative. But they did commission a report in terms of generational succession. There are measures and proposals in that, including cash supports for younger farmers, for older farmers. There's going to be a test now for government to see whether or not they actually action those recommendations, whether or not they put the money in that is required to ensure that we get the average age of farmers down. And it's not in any way, I'm no spring chicken myself, as you can see, it's not in any way to disregard the contribution and efforts of older people, and experienced and wise people, but we need youth, and we need that generational renewal. I made a commitment in the course of the campaign on behalf of Sinn Féin that we would work in terms of the nitrates derogation. We've continued that work. We will continue that work, keeping the pressure on government to ensure that they engage, not just engage with the issue, but engage actively with the issue. So that means not doing Zoom meetings. It means actually showing up in Brussels and impressing upon the European system the importance of this derogation for Ireland. And I also made a commitment in respect of the Mercosur trade deal. And just to be clear, we're not against trade. I mean, we're an island people, we're an island economy. Trade, of course, is necessary for our prosperity and for us to achieve. But the Mercosur deal, to anybody who cares to scrutinise it at any level, flies in the face not just of securing and protecting Irish farmers and producers, but also the environmental and regulatory standards that the system domestically and internationally, you know, promotes and in fact insists that people comply with. So we've made that position clear, and we think the government needs to be firmer and needs to be more explicit with Commissioner von der Leyen and others in terms of the Irish position. So we're going to keep working on those
Well, it is a very political argument, and obviously there's trade and economy very much with the bigger superpowers, well, maybe not superpowers, but stronger countries that have a stronger leverage and I suppose greater skin in the game in terms of cars and so on, you know. Yes. And the government would argue, and I'm not defending the government, I'm just playing a bit of devil's advocate here, that they have brought over the Environment Minister, they have brought over, or the Commissioner, DG Envy's delegation has been over. Minister McConaughey, prior to Minister Martin Hayden, has been back and forth the whole time. The farm organisations here have strongly sent delegations of their own to Brussels to try and I suppose push the case for Mercosur not to be adopted in its current form. We had MEP Billy Kelleher in here the last day in the strongest possible terms, saying he and his party and the grouping that he's part of in Europe have fought to get changes at the very least to Mercosur. So what has Sinn Féin done on a European footing?
Well, obviously we're not in government, so we don't have, and this is the critical access that government ministers have that differentiates them from the rest of us, because it's not alone that they can lobby or influence, they're actually at the decision-making table. But I mean, our record in terms of Mercosur is long-standing at a European level. You can look to the record of our members of the European Parliament, and we've come at it from 2 points of view. On the one hand, the needs and the protection of Irish producers, for sure, and also the wider canvas, which is around actually the system honouring its own proclamations around climate change and protecting the environment and not destroying the rainforest. I mean, to me, it just makes absolutely no sense for us to talk, as we must, about how we collectively as society deal with the climate change emergency on the one hand, and then sign up to a deal that flies in the face of those objectives. That, to me, doesn't...
well, the EU, I suppose, would argue it has brought in the EUDR, the European Deforestation Regulation, which says we can't take products into the bloc from areas where it has been deforested.
Can I tell you, Stella, I've heard the European system argue lots of things. I've heard them argue that black is white. They'll argue what they'll argue to get the result that they want. The job for Ireland, and for everybody representing this country, whether it's domestically or in Europe, is not to become Europe's man or woman in Ireland. You have to be Ireland's man or woman here and in Europe, and stand very firm, because the world is changing, it's challenging, I acknowledge that. These are not straightforward tasks, irrespective of who's in government, but you have to come from the right premise first.
Mary Lou, before I let you go, one final question. A couple of years ago, commentators, and I think it was pretty obvious in the public mood, that Sinn Féin seemed to be on the crest of a wave, and the wave has seemingly receded. There's a rise in what some might call more far-right views in this country at the moment. Is there a bit of an identity crisis in Sinn Féin at the minute?
Absolutely not. Sinn Féin is an Irish Republican party. We are the party of Irish freedom and reunification. We're a party of social justice, fairness and opportunity for men and women, rural, urban, inner city, and so on. No, we were on the crest of a wave. Politics is a bit like everything else in life. There's dynamics and cycles that come into play. There's a rule of political gravity. What goes up must come down. It's an inevitability. And we made some mistakes ourselves, of that there's no doubt, but the political climate changed, and we had to work our way through that. We didn't have the election I hoped that we would have. I had hoped that we would be in government, leading a new government. It wasn't to be, but I can tell you I am more determined than ever that we lead on to that. And as regards, just a final comment, on the idea of kind of like far-right views, there's no doubt that there is a section of Irish society, I think it's very small, of people who have views that you might call far-right ideologically. But what I actually hear isn't that. What I hear is people looking to the country, looking to the challenges, looking at the fact that our young people and others can't get a sustainable roof over their head, access to childcare, healthcare, the way in which people with disabilities, particularly children, have been failed so badly. And people ask the question, well, if things are not working now, how can we manage with more and more people? And I just don't think that the government in particular, or politics, has answered that question clearly or fairly enough. Irish people are decent, absolutely decent. And I believe that we remain a very welcoming and a very, very fine country. And I also think people are entitled to ask questions, to raise worries, and not be called far right.
Mary Lou McDonald, Sinn Féin, thank you very much for joining us on the live stream. Sorry we're caught for time. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you, Mary Lou. Thank you so much. Well, we're almost coming to the end of our live stream here on day 3 of Ploughing 2025, and the rain has just started, but it held off for 2 2/3 days, so we can't complain at that. It has been a very successful ploughing, and who better to tell us how successful that ploughing has been except for Anna-Marie McHugh from the National Ploughing Association. She joins us here in the Agriland stand. But first, I think we might go back out just to check before we finish up the live stream. We might pop out to our last couple of roving reporters outside and then come back here. We will have a lovely chat with Anna Marie.